I'm delighted to be with Jonathan from myflexbox, and we have something in common, Jonathan.
Yeah, we do.
What do you think it is?
Good question. I mean, our passion about smart lockers out of home.
And that is it, exactly. I think, and it's a really cool passion. And I wanted to talk a little bit about your journey and myflexbox journey into this world. So tell us a little bit about myflexbox.
Yeah. I mean, as you know perfectly, we as myflexbox, we built an agnostic network. So we are currently the largest agnostic network in Austria and also in Germany. And we started out with the simple fact that we saw, okay, the out-of-home market is like this smart locker, or let's say the parcel volume market becomes really difficult for cities. So the parcel volume is growing and growing. So we have like 7-8% growth rate per year, but the cities aren't growing fast enough. Like, you're not going to have enough streets. The streets are not growing 6-7%. The parking lots are not growing 6-7%. And we saw that, especially for Austria, there must be a different solution. And in Austria, like, we're still lagging behind. Like, we're not in Eastern Europe style, but we saw, okay, with smart lockers in an agnostic vehicle, we can really put some dent into it and really help the carriers to build better out-home networks.
Something you didn't share, but I know a little about your company because we were involved in the due diligence, but it was a really cool beginning because it was actually a city, from what I remember, Salzburg, that started off because they were very forward thinking and they said, we want to help support companies that do the right thing. So that's a little bit of something not many people maybe know.
Yeah, that's true. So that was really special about our case, that we had our main investor is the energy provider of the city of Salzburg. And they also had the mobility sector. We're also responsible for the mobility or public mobility of Salzburg. And that was really the case, to show them, see, it's actually a mobility problem for the city, and we can help to solve it by really building an agnostic network. And the Salzburg AG in the back, they gave us also the trust to approach, for example, DPD and the carriers, but also to have enough trust for the location partners like Lidl and the big ones, to really tell them, see, we're not expert in the field, but we're going to be able to build a network, and we can think long-term as an energy provider on our back.
So any cities that are watching, you have an opportunity to change the world for the better, working with companies like myflexbox. But listen, moving forward, tell me something. What led you to decide that, hey, lockers are the thing that we want to do? What was the background there? Other than the fact that Salzburg wanted something efficient and clean.
At the beginning, I was at Salzburg AG. I was responsible for mobility projects and products. And I really like one of the IT guys, he actually came up with the idea about smart lockers. And he wanted to have it for an internal use case to really solve his IT problems and for the handovers. And I thought, smart locks, they're really, really cool. And that's really a great innovation. And I saw that what is happening in Scandinavia and Eastern Europe.
If you look at your sort of milestones along the way, what would they be?
Well, at the beginning, for us, it was really tough as a startup. Like, we were three founders, and it was like Peter building the software. So for us, it was super important to have our own agnostic software platform to develop. Then we had Lucas, who was like working on the business development side to get locations and to get the carriers. And I was pretty much doing everything else and doing the strategy. The main milestones at the beginning was to get DPD. So we won DPD as our first large carrier, and they really helped us to build and really understand the platform we tried to build in the future. And the second large milestone was really to convince Lidl to roll out with us nationwide in Austria, which then helped us to attract GLS and UPS and FedEx and DHL Express.
So, as I think they say in Austria or Germany, Vorsprung durch DPD und Lidl.
Exactly.
I think it will be interesting for our viewers if you were to say, okay, Marek, the biggest lessons I learned were, what would they be?
That's a good question. We learned so many lessons on the way as building a startup. For me, the biggest lesson is to know what is your perspective on the market, like, which is basically the vision is basically just to you have a different perspective on the market. And what I now realize later on is that from the beginning on, we had a completely different perspective, because most of the carriers, they see smart lockers as part of their out-of-home network, and it's like one puzzle stone of everything, and it's not really like the main strategy. And for us, it's always been like, we only do smart lockers, and the only thing we do is build this network. And that was really for me, the biggest lesson, which led to a lot of key resources and key activities we did. So everything was related to that field we do in-house. Besides some maintenance and building the hardware, everything else is done in a house by ourselves. And this is really a huge lever. And in there, we had a lot of learnings. Like, it's always try and error, and you have to.
But if you were to think, okay, Marek, maybe the biggest single thing that we learned along the line was, what would it be?
That the integrations with carriers takes to have a very deep integration takes longer than expected.
Yeah, and that actually makes a lot of sense, because one of my learnings is, and you remember we were talking earlier about it, integration and time to integrate is really one of the biggest challenges in making it happen. Talking about ARKA, what made you choose ARKA as a supplier for your next generation locker?
Yeah. So ARKA, when we started out with ARKA, our main problem was that we saw the whole next gen movement. Back then it was still the Bluetooth based next gens. And we said, okay, we need to find our way. That's really cool. It's like, in terms of building locations and also in eco-environmentally, it's really great. And our issue was that since we're an agnostic network, we need like a full featured hardware, and not just like something which runs on a Bluetooth based app. And back then there was nothing on the market. Like there was literally no hardware which could really support it. And then, we were super happy when we got the introduction to ARKA and to Medlution, because they were really the first ones who really had a full functional next-gen locker with everything installed.
And you get the best of both worlds, because you get the peripherals that you really need, but with the flexibility of a solar and battery-powered machine.
Exactly. If you look like at petrol gas station locations or at retail locations, like the flexibility you now have to really choose the perfect location, it's really awesome. Like back with a plug-in, the perfect location is like really nearby the building, because you need some sort of electricity. Now you can really look for the perfect location on the whole parking lot, and it gives you a lot of operating freedom.
And if you were to look at, because of course they're flexible, but how have they worked in practice? If you look at the experience so far with the solar powered lockers, how has it been?
So we started with the first prototyping last year. So for us, it was really important in our prototyping phase to have one winter. So in Austria, we have kind of dark winters, and for us, that was super important to get everything right. And so we had also some features we wanted to have were a little bit special for us. So it took us like 1 year around to get the locker to a place where we say, okay, this is really our myflexbox locker. And then we went on a full rollout. So pretty much nowadays, most of the lockers we roll out are next-gen lockers, and we're doing really well. So it's really working great. And we haven't had any energy problems so far. Like we had minor other problems, of course, when you roll out a new hardware, which we didn't expect, but energy supply isn't one of them.
And maybe then tell me, looking in the future, where do you see locker networks from your perspective evolving over the next few years?
That is super interesting. I mean, when you see the market, I mean, better than me. If you look at different markets, like it's getting more and more crowded, and there's more. Some players become more open or try to be more cooperative. Others try to build more on their own. So it's really getting more diverse, I think. And in my perspective, we're going to reach some point where we see like the synergies, which are with all these networks involved. There will be some leverage in there to really lever all the different networks.
I love the fact that you guys very early on started with the idea of being open. I think open is going to develop, because open networks means many things to many people.
Yeah.
But I think we talked about that earlier. That's going to be really interesting. That's going to be one of the things that develop. And, watch this space. I expect that if we meet in 2 or 3 years' time, there's going to be a lot of new information about that. But my last question, if you had to, in a few words, describe what working with ARKA is like, and not too many words, what would they be?
Okay, the best word for us is also flexibility. Like ARKA is super flexible and extremely professional, and also I'd say streamline automation, because most of the people don't know that ARKA comes out of the automotive sector, and that's super interesting. Since I'm German, like we're into that, but they also think in terms of operations differently, more rather in this automotive spectrum, where you see, okay, you really have to streamline and smoothen out all the operational aspects.
So there you have it. Flexible, but very, shall we say, quality orientated in the same way that you have with automotive. Really pleasure catching up and look forward to future discussions as things develop.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Marek.